Hi, Black Introvert Week UK. Anna, it's wonderful to have you with us today. I should take a snippet of that and give it to Cam. You should love that. Well, thank you, Jess. I appreciate
Nice.
you joining us today. Thank you, Anna. I appreciate you. I appreciate your time.
Want to do number one, but
Sorry. No. I'm pushing you into a corner. Let's go number three. Well, while a lot of people have answered one question, you're going for two today, so I'm actually quite.
I'm very happy to give one-on-one interviews on the radio. I'm very happy to write PR articles.
It's crazy how quickly people just assume we are all the same and like this
For
is
sure.
the way to behave.
You don't have to like record this or anything.
That's
Okay.
fine. So being black in this world, man, it's wild. This is a big deal, and I'll tell you why. In the workplace, there's training for a lot of like there's diversity and inclusion training. Great. Because there are protective characteristics that we should all be made aware of and respect and make, to make the place workplace an inclusive space for all. However, the one area that diversity and inclusion training, onboarding, etc., doesn't actually cover is personality diversity, right? Now, we all have a personality. So it's quite bizarre that that's not actually a feature. And Black Introvert Week UK launched because as Black people, we are a minority. As Black introverts, we are a minority within a minority. So stereotypes such as, Black men should be, I don't know, loud, the angry Black man, whatever, the joker, whatever. Like if a Black man is quiet in the office, there's something wrong. Like, what's up with that guy? I've been called laid back many times, and it wasn't a compliment. It was almost like, it's like a low key kind of shade, right? So people seem to focus too much on our personality rather than the quality of our work because we don't fit in. Our puzzle piece doesn't fit into their picture of how we should behave as Black people in this country. So this video is for hiring managers, it's for HR managers, it's for those who are in charge of talent acquisition, interviews, onboarding, putting together the training for diversity and inclusion and, one-to-ones, learning and development, etc. So, hi, Leah. I love that laugh. You're amazing. Thank you for joining us today and just talking about something that's really important right now, and that's how to make Black introverts just feel a bit more included in the workplace. I've been having some wonderful conversations about being a Black introvert professional in this lovely country. And one of the questions that often comes up is, how has your introversion impacted your professional development? And what strategies have you found helpful in navigating an extrovert-dominated workplace?
One of my first roles, I worked for an agency that placed a strong emphasis on networking, which is very important in the industry as well. Networking with journalists and prospective clients. And I remember at the end of every week, we would have like a big all company meeting. And one of the things that we would discuss in that meeting was who did you network with this week? What was your networking? Who did you meet? What did you do? And it was very easily like my least favorite part of the week, this whole dynamic of networking and, judging how many people I've networked with or how many people I've met. I remember dreading it.
So I would say for me, my introversion has shown up and sort of affected me in sort of my confidence. I think you grow up seeing everybody else be really extroverted. You get a feel very early on that we're an extroverted society and a very extroverted dominated society, I should say. And that is what's often favored. You see that, I've seen that at group panel interviews when I've gone for jobs. I've seen that in the workplace. I've seen that in group chats. And you often, you do get forgotten when you're not the loudest in the room. And for a long time, employers favored that, I would say. They wanted someone that was really loud and talkative and just could speak to everybody. So because you knew that's what people wanted and what was valued, it did knock my confidence quite a bit.
I don't think I thought much about what an introvert and extrovert was back then. So I'm going through this not thinking, oh, I'm an introvert. It perhaps did hold me back in terms of my professional development early in my career. Thankfully, I mean, over the years, I have developed various strategies to sort of, navigate things like that. We're all on a scale, aren't we? Extrovert and introvert. And I do consider myself more of an extroverted introvert, but definitely firmly more in the introvert side. So I absolutely can network, and I can be in high energy environments and meet with people and be personable. I absolutely can do those things. But what I've learned about myself over the years is I really need to be intentional about recharging myself and giving my time, setting aside time daily to have my me time to, decompress, take a stock of what I've done that day and to recharge myself. So I think it's kind of habit now that over the years that's just built into my daily routine, my recharging time. And as long as I'm doing that, it definitely helps me to be able to navigate in more extroverted environments.
What I found that's really helped me sort of build up my confidence is leaning into my introversion. And what that means is embracing what it is, understanding how it shows up, and really leaning into it as what I would probably call like a superpower in my environments. So for example, I've got a history in journalism. I used to be a journalist before moving to PR. And I was like, wow, what am I going to do? Like, by nature of journalism, even though I studied it, by nature of journalism, you're completely out there. You have to be vocal. You have to have an opinion. You have to be online. You have to be visible. And I was like, that is not me. So I kind of looked at it in a way of, where am I thriving in this job? I was thriving doing things like this, talking to somebody one-on-one. I was able to sort of lean into questionings more, sensitive topics. I realized I had a real knack for delving into really sensitive topics with people. So things like domestic violence I would cover, things like sexual assault I would cover, people with real trauma. And they were coming out of those interviews feeling like they'd been heard and listened to and validated. And that's when I realized, wow, okay, this doesn't have to be a bad thing. There's power in listening deeply to somebody and bouncing off a rapport with somebody and using that sort of response and rapport to help create their narrative in journalism and storytelling. And that's when I realized, okay, this is something I should be happy about, because the copy I was producing was telling that story so eloquently. And that's when I really started to lean in to that introversion and saw it as something that was amazing. It took me a while. It took me till my mid-20s until I really realized that. But I would say that has been massive for me.
And for me, it takes quite a lot of courage to kind of say what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling. And that is not just necessarily in a personal context in terms of well-being. It's more, what do you think about this project? How could we improve things? Like things that workplaces are always asking and looking for. But I think some of them don't necessarily understand or know that although everyone has thoughts on these things, you're not necessarily, you might have to work harder to get thoughts, true feelings about what people think about things from people like myself that maybe are a bit more introverted.
Sometimes I feel like because of me being an introvert, I will not be able to put myself out there in some certain situations. I won't be able to like speak up when needed. So we may be having like conversations, and in my head, I'm like, Femi, speak now, Femi, speak now. And all of a sudden, the moment to speak has gone because they have moved on from the conversation. And I can't sort of like bring back the conversation. So I just like keep quiet.
Although I class myself as an introvert at work, like I'm always outspoken, I'm always speaking when I need to speak in like a meeting, for example. I will say something if not something needs to be said. If I meet someone new, I'm always open to speaking to people. So I remember when I had my performance review, and then one of like the things I should improve on was increasing my visibility. I was like, What do you mean? Because I feel like I've been doing it my way, but I guess maybe my way of doing it isn't what they view as visibility. So I definitely say that's one of the ways where it has affected my personal development.
Sometimes I physically separate myself from my colleagues because I get a bit not stimulated, but like overwhelmed by the noise and everything. But just kind of communicating that with people so that they kind of don't misconstrue things, because particularly if you're Black as well in the workplace, it feels like there's just another layer of possible misunderstanding to the actions that you do. So for me, it makes me overthink things a lot. But hopefully, if you kind of can communicate, okay, I need to work on this project, so I'm going to just go quickly work in this meeting room. Hopefully, stuff like that can help. So a bit of over communication basically is the main key for me.
I found that preparing beforehand helps me to take stock, whether that's reviewing an agenda beforehand or having a think about what can I bring up, what can I contribute to this. Doing that beforehand definitely helps me with the speaking up aspect, which as an introvert, I do sometimes, especially earlier in my career, struggle to, I guess, speak up if other people are speaking up more or raising their hands more. It always helps as well. We don't always have control over this, but it always helps when you're working with something that you're passionate about. I find that when I'm passionate about something, it makes it so much easier to speak up and to, tap into the more extroverted side of my personality. That's half the battle. But obviously we don't always have control over exactly what we work on, but I try where I can to perhaps put myself forward for things that I know that, I'm really, this is something that I'm really interested in.
So for those who have never heard of me before, I trained as a corporate lawyer, and a lot of lawyers are introverted. But then some lawyers decide to leave the safety of the firm and go in-house to corporates. And that is where my career took me. And as my career progressed, I was promoted to general counsel of a fintech business, hive of activity, hive of egos, hive of possibility and determination. And in my role, I was very much head down, get stuff done, and I would make an impact by being diligent and being a person of integrity. But that's not how you get ahead. It's not really about, are you a wallflower or not? Sometimes you have to shout about your achievements. And I'm quite understated. And when I say quite understated, I mean extremely understated. Like, my work speaks for itself. I had a really extroverted boss who I'm pretty sure spent more time telling his boss how amazing he was at his job and every minute thing that he had done than actually doing it. So I found it a challenge to come out of myself and to say, what do I need to do to change my communication style so that people know what I'm doing without me saying, look how amazing I am, but just so that they have what they need to feel like I'm pulling my weight around the table and I'm involved and engaged in the conversations without feeling like I'm disengaged or passive or disinterested. But I didn't stay a general counsel. I became a CEO. And that expectation that you can be understated and sell is an impossibility. And suddenly I was confronted with networking, surrounded by people. And I'd gone from the comfort of one-to-one conversations and being able to showcase who I am and convince somebody of the way forwards in a small, controlled environment to a dynamic, multiple personality, lots of really exciting people and places and buzzy with lights and music and noise. And I was like, how am I going to manage this?
In Nigeria, I've been to a few networking events and it's really, really chilled or calm in a sense. But when I moved to the UK, I went to a networking event and it felt like everyone was just talking. Like, I was wondering, how can everyone hear themselves? Because if you move to the left side, everyone is talking, right side, everyone is talking. So I just feel like, so that's why sometimes I might not really choose to go for a networking event, because I feel like if I go there, I wouldn't be able to to talk, or I won't be able to find that accurate timing to enter a conversation, because you speaking to someone else, I won't also be able to interject the conversation because I won't also have a clue about what they're saying. So me also interjecting in this conversation, which shows like I'm rude. And I feel like networking events or going for networking events or meeting more people in the industry are sort of like really, really important to my professional development.
So networking, I realized that that word can fill certain people with dread. So I
Yeah.
remember a previous mentor saying to me that actually reframe it as a conversation.
Hmm.
You and I right now, believe it or not, we're networking, but
We are.
we wouldn't call it that, right? This is a
Yeah.
conversation.
For my company, being visible equals being extroverted. Being visible equals you like screaming from the rooftop, saying, you know, being the loudest person in the room or being the loudest person in a meeting, making sure you're speaking enough in a meeting. And obviously, and for myself, I don't fit in that. I feel like I'm that person where I need time to think before I speak, rather than speak and then think. Or if there's a need for contribution, I'm the type of person that will like not wait, but I will just kind of retain the information that's gone in, and then I will speak.
Fake it till you make it is a thing. And that's not what I'm advocating. What I'm actually advocating for is knowing yourself. And for me, it's been about finding space to recharge. It's been about saying, I've got to be on at this place with these people at this time. I've got a very specific mission for this conversation. But I can do that because I know that I'm going to be able to take time for myself to regroup and to rebuild my social battery after the fact. And I expect that I will be depleted from this conversation. But if I want to progress in my career and if I want to achieve my potential, which is what the teachers at school actually said about me, is that, you know, Leah's got a lot of potential, but she's not reaching it. Part of that is because with my introversion, there's also a lot of fear. There's a fear of speaking up. There's a fear of how I'm going to be received. There's a fear of saying the wrong thing or upsetting somebody. There's a fear of being presumed to be too loud.
I think there's this perception that introversion is, it's a challenge. It's not a good thing. It's something you have to fix. And I don't see it as that anymore. It's an aspect of me, in addition to all the other unique things about me who make me who I am, that contributes to my talent or my contribution to the workplace, and to the community and to the world at large.
The biggest thing is that I'm not trying to be like somebody else to be a good leader. I'm not trying to be an extroverted CEO to grow my business. I'm trying to be me, and I'm trying to make it work for me. And that might mean that it takes longer. That might mean that it feels a little bit different than people are used to. But I've had to work out, how can I use the things that I am good at to further my own career interests, to further the mission that I'm trying to achieve?
It's understanding where my strengths are, being really honest about what I'm good at, because we're saying with introversion, extroversion, you're going to be good and bad at certain things. So I was like, what am I great at? Let me lean into that. And I found my niche. I'm really great at sort of what I would call now in PR, stakeholder engagement. I can sit and talk to people, and I can really delve into them like one-on-one, like, what are you thinking? Dissect their minds, ask the right questions. And often the work that is produced from that, it speaks for itself. And also, I really want to add, I was in an environment that encouraged that as well.
I've realized that one-to-one communication is definitely my power and my strength. I think even during the internship as well, I think that was something that I was consistently doing. And I think it also aided me with getting a promotion as well. So I think I'm still going to keep doing it. Still going to keep doing the one-to-one communication. I think I remember when I had the little kind of feedback roundup when I finished the internship, one of the things that was said was that I was really good at networking and making sure that I was speaking to different people in my team, but also across like the different departments, C-suite people, SLT and stuff. So I think that's definitely a strategy that I've kind of learned to kind of still be myself, but still embrace my introversion. So yeah.
I can continue to go into those environments and flex those muscles, not so that I can be more like the extroverts in the room, but so that I can be the best version of myself as I interact in those spaces.
for the people, can you share a specific instance where your introversion was misunderstood or misjudged in the workplace? And how did you handle it?
My background is media, but the role was advertised as a healthcare support role, but it was my experience in media. And I think all of the connotations of being Black and being in media, it came with that role, and I was not aware of that. And so while I was in the job, really enjoyed it, was enjoying a lot of the aspects of being able to create content. My manager started, telling me every other catch-up meeting, like, oh, we're noticing you're not really speaking up in the meetings, you're not really contributing, you're not really sharing your opinions. And I'm like, I said it plainly, oh, I'm quite introverted. I don't really like talking and just sort of being in there. I don't like being the center of attention. I just like doing my job. I perform better when I have one-to-one calls, and I just take notes and follow up on the actions, and I deliver, and I make sure I deliver. But every time this same feedback kept coming up, and it got to a point where I didn't know what to do. It was like I was speaking to a wall, and I kind of understand their perspective. It was a new department, and they were trying to establish themselves in the system. Like, okay, we are meant to be here, so we're trying to build relationships with everyone. And I did. I tried to build one-to-one relationships. But when we're in a group meeting, I don't want to be the one sort of, cracking jokes, making sure everyone is, I don't know, just sharing unnecessary information or just being the center of attention. I'm just not comfortable in that. So how did I resolve it? After this continuous feedback and me doing my best, because I even tried to get out of my comfort zone to just sort of speak out more in meetings, I got very uncomfortable. And eventually, it started affecting my work. It started affecting the way I communicate and with my manager, because resentment started to build. I started to just, resent the fact that he just wouldn't understand where I was coming from. And so after a couple of months in this role, I actually started looking for another job because there was just no way it would be resolved, and I had to leave. They thought it was sudden, despite all of the back and forth that we were going through. My manager was like, oh, this is so strange. I didn't think you would want to leave. And I'm thinking to myself, like, I've been telling you I'm uncomfortable doing this. You need to understand where I'm coming from. And I had to leave. And so that's how that was resolved. And I wish I don't know. I don't think there's anything else I could have done to make it different. It's just different personalities, and their their unwillingness to sort of understand where I'm coming from and my personality, and to adjust and to ensure that I'm comfortable and I can perform to the best of my abilities.
First of all, I'm obviously sorry that you had to repeat yourself, on a topic that is personal to you, and also provided them with like the cheat code on how to make you feel more inclusive. And it just seemed to go over their head. So it does sound like there is this increased need for training around personality diversity, understanding how to make introverts feel more included and welcomed, in a workplace kind of environment that seems to benefit extroverts, champion extroverts, and celebrate them. Within Black Introvert Week UK, we are all about solutions. But this is, yes, it's good to vent, it's good to kind of get things off your chest, but this is not a moaning shop. This is not victim Olympics. What we're trying to do is, find solutions so that we can actually thrive in the workplace, as you rightly mentioned earlier. So my question to you, Leah, is what key message would you like to convey to employers about the importance of recognizing and valuing the contributions of Black introverts in the workplace?
I need employers to be aware. I need them to be queued up and educated. That is the biggest thing. And I know that word is completely tired out from the Black Lives Matter movement in 2020, but it cannot ring truer, that people need to be educated. And I say that is because, let's be honest, that a lot of people that are not they're not Black, they don't have Black people in their lives. They don't have them in their friendship circles. They don't have them in their personal lives at all. So their exposure to Blackness is very, very limited. And if they are getting exposed to Blackness, it's by way of popular media, which we all know can be very problematic. Be aware of the problem before we create it. Don't let a Black employee start at your company and they're made to feel uncomfortable on their first day, on their first week, and their first month because you're making comments about them being quiet and being this and being that. Just understand how to kind of read people and read the room. And I think that's something that a lot of our employers who are not Black don't have. They're not able to read Black people because they're not used to being around them.
Having people who believe in you and champion for you or speak well of you when you're not in the room as well, bring up your name, suggest you for things is definitely a key aspect for helping, you know, add positively to your professional development as an introvert.
I think I would say there's no one fixed way to value introverts, Black introverts in the workplace. But there are a variety of things that can be done, particularly working on the culture, so that there's different ways for people to communicate how they think and feel. For example, sometimes in meetings, extroverts tend to voice all their opinions in the meetings, and then introverts have a lot of thoughts but don't necessarily know. They won't be able to communicate at that time. So, and then sometimes when the meeting's over, you're just kind of like, oh no, that window's passed now to share my thoughts. So kind of just keeping that window open, kind of being like, if anyone has any other ideas or sparked by the talk we had during the meeting, feel free to send them my way. Just kind of like considerate things like that, recognizing that people think and approach things differently. So commonly lots of introverts might not necessarily make decisions straight away about things. So they can learn from their extroverted peers in that way.
That toolkit that Black Introvert Week put together for school teachers, fantastic. Give that to employers and bosses so they know what to look out for. And so they're not making their Black employers feel insignificant or feel like they're a problem or they're the burden.
A message, or like even HR professionals to keep in mind, is that like introversion is not this one kind of pigeonhole thing. It's so many different things, and being an introvert is a strength. Like it shouldn't be seen as a weakness. It shouldn't be seen as, oh, we've got to do something like that, or because you're a little bit quiet, we've got to do this. Like it's like, no, you should be being like, okay, you know, you're quiet, should we try this, or what do you think about this? Also just asking them like, oh, how would you, like, where can we support you in this, or where do you feel most comfortable? I think those would be like my key messages.
I'm very confident that, you know, through discussions like ours today, we will come to a place where we're able to equip these hiring managers and those in charge of learning and development in the workplace to be able to really focus, you know, people managers, line managers' attention on how to make their working environments more inclusive for introverts, and particularly Black introverts. You know, we unfortunately fall victim to the stereotype of the nation, and if we don't fit into their perception of what, you know, we should be, you know, as Black men, for example, in the workplace, it definitely can be to our disadvantage. So thank you so much, Ola. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Very, very welcome. Thank you very much for doing this.